sing this song to you. Through all the faces, keep your eye on the red and the blue.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm wondering if they'll do it again or something. Like, it's a really, really good idea.
So that was pretty cool. Most important thing of all is that the football club understood through perhaps some persuasion, but they understand that they are in the media business. One of the things that football clubs have been notorious for is the closed sessions. Yeah, so they lock the doors, they don't let people in. The critical change at the Melbourne Football Club is that everyone is welcome, the media are welcome. The rule of thumb is that there is no such thing as a secret. And it's extremely important change in the culture of this sporting club in particular, which has led to us to have more than our fair share of media. So the media is giving us a hand to build brand fame. I'll just report back on some of the results. So the membership's now growing. We've got our all-time record now, so over 33,000. I said we had no sponsors for 2009. Well, we did get sponsors for 2009 and 2010, and they've re-signed for 2011. The attendance is no longer declining. In fact, Melbourne is the 5th most attended football club in the AFL this year, which is a much bigger number than the AFL would ever expect. Our ageing supporter base, they're still getting older, of course, but what we are doing is we're creating a much greater youth engagement. We're working extremely hard on youth engagement, and I expect that those numbers will improve as the side improves. We're no longer last on the ladder. Don't know where we'll finish, but we're not going to finish last. Perhaps really interestingly, and something that we're all very proud of, those of us that are involved, we've actually written off the $5 million of debt that we were in 26 months ago. And those of us that are engaged in that, and the AFL I think would endorse this, it's actually because of an amazing brand story that we've managed to create. But more importantly, it's because of the leadership of a fellow called Jim Stones. And the thing that he's done, and perhaps the most significant lesson that I've got out of the Melbourne Football Club, is when he walked in, he said the only way you're ever going to succeed is if you've got absolute alignment on what you're setting out to achieve with the players, the executive and the board. Now that makes a whole lot of sense, I know, but if you like, there'll be plenty of sporting clubs that don't have alignment with the playing group, the executive group and the board. And I can assure you that at the Melbourne Football Club at this point in time, there is total alignment, due in no small part to the incredible leadership of Jim Stones. I was going to show you one more film. I'm not going to bother because in effect it just says what I've just said. The footy club has had an amazing run. The AFL is now, the threat of becoming the Gold Coast Demons no longer exists. And as I said a little earlier, perhaps the Melbourne Football Club has been the thing that has taught me more than anything with regard to this business that we're all in, the business of building brands, the role that the media can play, and the importance of great storytelling. So, I won't show you another film, unless you want to see it, and we might have some questions. Yeah, hello?
Russell, you mentioned the Jim Stones factor.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know Jim, he's had a massive illness. But he's really a great role model, having come from Ireland and played football and been well recognised. And I guess the good thing with Jim, what I've seen, Russell, is he gets out there with the crowd, sits with the cheer squad. Yep. He's not a president up there. And it's, have you got any more comments on Jim? Because I think he's an outstanding reason that Melbourne have moved on as they have. Well,
I've got lots of great stories. I'll tell you, the story when he was 17 years old, he came to Melbourne, so he's from Dublin. And he says he was one of 6 kids, and he was so poor that his father used to, on a Sunday, his father would carve the chicken so thinly enough for them to have enough for sandwiches the next day. And when he arrived in Melbourne, he couldn't believe that everywhere he went, there was just barbecues everywhere. And you could eat whatever you want for as long as you wanted. And in 6 weeks, he grew 1.5 inches and put on 2 stone. Anyway, he's not as healthy now, that's true. He has got a cancer which they can't quite put their hand on. They can't quite define it. He's had a number of operations. He's sort of come up and down. But, you know, of course, he is. It's not just because of that storyline that Melbourne has created its success. It's because of just the outstanding leadership and the passion that he has for the club. There's a fellow at the back there.
Hi Russell, that was great. I was lucky enough, I used to work at Defence Recruiting.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about the ads that you've done. One of the things that was really important when I was there was getting all the service members behind the campaign and actually getting them to believe in the message. Have you got any advice on how you can actually get people who aren't advertising to do that?
It's interesting. One of the things which I think as suppliers we forget when we do a campaign, there's obviously the consumer audience, but so often we do forget the trade audience, but we also forget the internal audience. So I just think if you're a client and you're briefing your agency supplier, ask them about their recommendations on trade communication and internal staff communication. Because it is something that they forget. Agencies forget to do it. We need to be reminded all the time because our eye is on the consumer. Nonetheless, we've got the skills to be able to communicate to an internal audience as much as the external audience. So, yeah, my only advice is ask your agency to recommend. Interestingly, this sounds terribly self-centred, but let's go with it anyway. What a few of our clients are doing now is, because I've got a face that people recognise, they now use me for their internal communication. And that's a good place for me to be. It's good fun. They'll film me and I'll say these ads are grouse, and then they see the ads and then they all go, they're grouse. So that works quite well. Come on.
Russell, given that the election is the topic we just had, we touched on it, how do you think they came up with such terrible advertising in the 2 days? I mean, surely there is more sophistication in the world of politics and communications. But they're so heavily, they get so heavily involved in all of the advertising of government. Why would they turn out such media?
I think there was fear of standing out. I think they had their eye more on the opposition. Each side, so to speak, had their eye on the opposition looking for a mistake. Because what would happen, and this is where we're at fault in our industry, what would happen is we would exploit the mistake. So the language that they use, I mean, Tony Abbott, of course, has been praised for his discipline, which is obviously, he was highly disciplined during the campaign, but I also reckon he was scared of making an error for fear of it being turned into a Labor ad. So I think that that's one of the dynamics that both parties are dealing with. There is that, that get a job, Paul Keating, there's that fear that you'll just say something that gets captured and then gets exploited. I think what was really interesting in this campaign is that there actually was some really great ads that were made. And they were made for purposes of YouTube, and they were made, if you like, by some of the outlying parties or interest groups involved. And I think that's where a lot of the fun came in the ads. I don't think there's any choice. I think you do have to do negative advertising. If you were in the position where you've got a choice of 2 products, so let's say that on today's Friday, tomorrow there's only 2 cans of coal that you are able to choose, and you've only got 1 shot at a piece of advertising. I suspect don't choose the other would be more powerful than choose X. So I think that's just a problem of the way us humans are wired. So I don't think you've got any choice. I think over 60% of most political messaging is negative, which is a pity, I know, but it works. As I said, I think one of the interesting metaphors in this campaign was the backdrops. I don't know whether anyone else noticed the backdrops, but they both finished up being the same colour. They were both a blue. They both had typefaces that were white out of blue, and they were both in effect the same typeface. So even the backdrops, I think they were trying really hard to make it a scoreless draw. No one really used advertising to differentiate. Which in the ad game, in the brand game, that's not what we would advise, is it? But perhaps in the political game, that's what they're advised to do. I don't know, it seems a bit odd, doesn't it?
Hi Russell, Anthony Coles here. Thanks again for coming and sharing some inspiration with us here in Adelaide.
Thank you.
Can you just highlight any examples you've got? You mentioned that you like inspiring people inside the organisation to sell ideas.
Yeah.